We're just going to give it a moment, let people come in from the waiting room. All right, as a reminder, please make sure you're muted. All right. Good afternoon. This is a hearing before the Boston Cannabis Board. Today is January 19th, 2022. Today's hearing is being conducted pursuant to certain temporary amendments to the open meeting law. That is what allows us to meet virtually. This hearing is being recorded and will be posted to the City of Boston's website. Before I review some procedural matters, I will introduce Chairwoman Kathleen Joyce.
Thank you, Jasmine, and thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Kathleen Joyce. I'm Chair of the Boston Cannabis Board, and today I'm pleased to be joined by Commissioner John Smith, Commissioner Darlene Lombos, and Commissioner Lisa Holmes.
All right. And my name is Jasmine Nguyen, and I am the Boston Cannabis Board Manager. While the public is encouraged to attend, there will be no additional public testimony accepted. I will read each item into the record. After, I will ask for comments from the board members. I will then ask for if there's a motion, any questions on the motion, and then there will be a vote. Each board member has the ability to grant with conditions, defer, reject without prejudice, which means the applicant can return anytime with an application at the same location, or reject with prejudice, which means the applicant cannot reapply at the same location for 1 year. The first item we have is New England Cannabis Corp., NECC. The license premise is at 204 North Beacon Street, Alston, Brighton. The license type is a recreational cannabis dispensary license. The request is to change the corporate name from New England Cannabis Corp., NECC, to Depkin Corp. We'll start with comments from the board members. Chairwoman Joyce.
Thank you, Jasmine. My only comment was I appreciated the applicant explaining that the new buyer for the larger New England Cannabis Corporation has no interest in a retail license at this location, so that is why they're doing the name change. I have no other issues and no other comments.
Commissioner Smith.
No comments on this. Thank you.
Commissioner Holmes.
No comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Lombos.
No comments, thanks.
Okay, Chairwoman Joyce, is there a motion?
I vote to approve this change as presented by the applicant.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Petition is granted. The second matter we have is Sierra Naturals, Inc. The license premise is at 829 Wilson Street, Back Bay. The license type is a recreational cannabis dispensary license. The request is to add the DBA air. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any comments?
As presented, the applicant said there will be no changes to operations or ownership, so I have no questions or concerns with this request.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Jasmine. No questions or concerns.
Commissioner Lombos?
No comments, thank you.
Commissioner Holmes?
No comments. Thank you.
Chairwoman Joyce, is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve this request for the DBA.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? And none opposed. All right, the petition is granted. All right. Next, we have Pure Oasis LLC. The proposed premise is at 85 Devonshire Street, downtown. The license type is a recreational cannabis dispensary license. The proposed hours of operation are 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. This is an equity applicant. The initial application was filed on June 2nd, 2021. The date of filing with Inspectional Services was June 2nd, 2021, and the community meeting took place on October 21st, 2021. And there is a buffer zone conflict. First, we will start with comments from the board members. Chairwoman Joyce.
I don't have many comments. I did appreciate their strong buffer zone statement outlining the reasons why they felt that this application should be something we move forward despite a buffer zone conflict. It's also an equity applicant, and it's really nice to see an equity applicant looking to open up their doors in downtown Boston. I think it's something that this board has continued to prioritize since our very first meeting.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. I appreciated their reading through all the applications and the supplementary material. They'll have to continue working with the downtown bid in terms of that closing time and negotiating that, but appreciated that presentation. That's it.
Commissioner Lumbos?
Yes, thank you, Jasmine. I thought it was a very strong application. I really appreciated the time that they spent in answering questions about just their one shop that's already open. Nice to see a strong track record of a business going into downtown. Thanks.
Commissioner Holmes?
No questions, just I reiterate what my fellow commissioner said, and I appreciate the bid chiming in and to make sure that, because that was my concern, that we put the same conditions on, if granted, Pure Oasis that we have put on Patriot Care and the other people who have come before us for downtown. So I think they had a very strong presentation, and as Commissioner Lombo says, it's good to see that somebody who has a good track record of business in this industry already branching out successfully to another location.
Chairwoman Joyce, is there a motion?
Yes, I want to make sure I get this correct. I make a motion to grant this application conditional upon the buffer zone
Mhm.
being worked out at CBA and upon their coming to an agreement with the bid on the conditions that were presented to us.
And just to be clear, they are the same conditions as Patriot Care. It's just the closing hour with some discrepancies. So do we want to put a time that they
I think
should?
I think they should continue to meet, and before we issue the license, if we could hear back from both sides, granted conditionally today, and before we issue it and we wouldn't add the conditions until it was issued.
Mhm.
So we can
Okay.
revisit those conditions before that we actually issue the license.
Okay.
Any questions on the motion? No questions. Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor? And none opposed. So the petition is granted conditionally pending zoning relief for the buffer zone. And the physical license will not be issued until the bid and the applicant come to an agreement as far as the closing hour.
Or that the board is comfortable with what
Yeah.
the conditions are on the license.
Okay. Next, we have Beacon Compassion, Inc. The proposed license premise is 1524 VFW Parkway, West Roxbury. The license type is a co-located medical and recreational cannabis dispensary license. The proposed hours are 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. This is a non-equity applicant. The initial date of the application was July 14, 2021. The filing with Inspectional Services was April 10, 2019, and the community meeting was October 13, 2021. This is currently approved for medical, and they're adding recreational. Chairwoman Joyce?
Thanks, Jasmine. I was happy to see this applicant before us. And I was happy to get an opportunity to hear from them why they were going back for recreational, when in fact, at the beginning of this process, they'd only asked for medical. It makes sense to me now that I've listened to the testimony and I've read the letters of support and non-opposition that we've received, that at the time they started this process with the community, there really wasn't a landscape for cannabis, recreational cannabis at the time. To see the community join the hearing and express their support to continue to work with the applicant was refreshing. And all in all, I think they had a good application, and if this does get approved, I urge the applicant to continue to work with the community and to continue to look for support from the abutters and the neighbors and the community at large.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. Nothing much else to add. I was appreciative of the material they sent in on the wages and building out their diversity and equity plan. So thank you so much for the effort that you made in your presentations.
Commissioner Lumbos?
Not much to add. Thank you.
Commissioner Holmes?
No additional.
Chairwoman Joyce, is there a motion?
Yes, I make a motion to grant this license.
Is there a second? A second?
Second,
All in favor? And none opposed. The next applicant we have is Mass Greenwoods LLC. The proposed license premise is 116 Harvard Avenue, Alston. The license type is a recreational cannabis dispensary license. The proposed hours are 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week. This is an equity applicant. The initial application was filed July 29, 2021. The inspectional services filing was August 24th, 2021, and the community meeting was held December 29th, 2021. There is a buffer zone conflict with another cannabis establishment. Chairwoman Joyce?
Thanks, Jasmine. Just looking over my score sheet. This was a good application. One of the only things that stuck out for me was this buffer zone. However, I think it's a different locally owned application. I think it does stand apart from the establishment that creates the buffer zone. While the mayor's office didn't take a position, and deferred to us, they did describe that the community meetings were well attended. I don't really have any other comments about the application at this time.
Commissioner Smith?
Oh, good application. Yeah, thank you for the efforts that you made in your presentation.
Commissioner Longos?
yeah, I thought it was a good application, strong. I like that they talked about Big Hope as part of their partnership. We're very detailed, so I thought it was a strong application.
Commissioner Holmes?
I echo the sentiments of my fellow commissioners. They had a very strong application. I was particularly struck by the fact of helping the artist community and using the lobby for gallery space. I know there was a loss of a lot of artist lofts in Alston, Brighton in the last few years. So that's a really good thing. And I like to see the cannabis companies really try to immerse themselves in the communities that they're in. And I think offering this artist space is one of those types of ways.
Thank you. Chairwoman Joyce, is there a motion?
I make a motion to grant this application a license conditional upon zoning relief.
Is there a second? All in favor? And none opposed. Petition is granted pending zoning relief. Right. Next applicant we have is NSAJL Holdings, Inc. The license premise is 50 Clapp Street. This license type is a co-located medical and recreational cannabis dispensary license. The hours proposed are Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. This is a non-equity applicant. The initial application was filed on June 25th, 2021. The date with the inspectional services was June 25th, 2021. And the community meeting was held October 25th, 2021. This is currently approved for medical and they're adding recreational. Chairwoman Joyce?
I thought this was a really good application. On top of it being a good application, they had a lot of community support, both from elected officials and their neighbors. It's clear that they want to be good neighbors, and I liked a lot of the aspects of their application. Some of their career pathway stuff stood out to me. I have no issues at all with this application.
Commissioner Smith?
Thanks, much the same, no issues at all, thank you.
Commissioner Longos?
Yep, strong application. Thank you.
Commissioner Holmes?
Ditto.
Chairwoman Joyce, is there a motion?
I make a motion to grant this applicant a license at this location.
Is there a second? All in favor? None opposed. Right, next we have En Route LLC. The proposed license premise is 415 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester. The license type is a co-located marijuana courier and delivery operator license. The proposed hours are Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Sunday noon to 8 p.m. This is an equity applicant. The initial application was filed on June 12th, 2021. The inspection services filing was July 2nd, 2021, and the community meeting was held October 27th, 2021. There was a buffer zone conflict with another cannabis establishment. Chairwoman Joyce.
Thank you, Jasmine. I have to bring to the discussion one of the issues I had at the hearing, and that was what was presented to the community at the community meeting. At that time, the ownership was 51% James Finney. And just 2 weeks before our hearing, the ownership changed to and divested him of a significant portion of his ownership in this application. Doesn't mean the application changed as far as ideas and business plan, but I do feel as if we have made it a point to say on the record that it's important to, at least it's important to me that the community is aware of who is going to be operating this license. And I think at the community meeting, the person out front was James Finney, and now he's 20% owner. And while I'm not saying they did anything wrong, they met the requirements of being a social equity applicant, which opened the doors for this type of license for them. And by them putting James Finney out in front in late October, that got their application moving forward through the board. And then 2 weeks before our hearing, they switched the ownership and added these other people. And I feel as if there's a lot of opposition here from members of the community, and we owe them an opportunity to sit down with this applicant again and to get a better understanding of who is going to be operating at this location. And if that is this type of neighborhood, they take a vested interest in the businesses that come in there. And I think they should have an opportunity to speak to the 4 new owners. Because at the time the majority owner was Mr. Finney.
Commissioner Smith.
I looked at it from the perspective of they're not opening another dispensary. It's a courier and delivery service. And they had a really strong community benefits agreement, which they worked out with organizations and folks in the community. So yeah, it was a little bit confusing initially about the ownership and who had the majority ownership. They've sent in some documents that have kind of cleared that up. So yeah, I was also a little bit surprised at the presentation that you had this 51% owner, but now it's switched. So, I think they will have to continue to talk to the community about their plans and their development going forward. But overall, I like this application.
Commissioner Lambos.
Yeah, for me, I actually thought the explanation and the supplemental materials that they provided around the ownership and the explanation did clear it up for me. I was initially confused, but I also think part of that explanation is, from my perspective, it's to prevent kind of big corporations from using a local person to kind of go through an application process and then later on, take the profits. So that's what I sort of look at in terms of the ownership, but I do understand that it was confusing, and but I did think that it got cleared up in the supplemental information. And I do just think that this applicant, we've seen this applicant come before us several times, and they're just very intentional about the way that they don't just cut and paste everything that they've done in other, in their other applications. There's always something new, always something different. And I really appreciate that about this applicant, and very detailed on their diversity and inclusion plans and their employment plans, really thinking through those. So I really think it's a strong applicant and application. And I don't feel as concerned about the ownership right now.
Commissioner Holmes.
Okay, so I do think they had a very strong application. And also, as Commissioner Lombo said, I mean, they have been before us quite a few times, so they know what we're looking for. My 2 areas of concern are sort of on the same line as the chairwoman. It was the initial ownership change and the initial meetings with the community in which they didn't quite, I don't feel like they quite explain what they were going to use this building for when purchased. And so it just seems, I don't know, I just had a little concern about that community meeting where the community was told one thing and then months later, we have a whole nother entity going in there, and then the ownership, the 51%, and then a week before you come before us, it kind of switches. I mean, it just kind of lends itself to a little bit of skepticism on my part. I don't know if it's deserved or not, but it just gives me a sense of needing to know more and wanting to see more and hear more. So I think I have to agree with Chairperson Joyce that they need to do some more work in the community and, you know, present what this ownership and this plan is completely, because I don't feel that they did that 100% in the beginning.
Chairwoman Joyce, is there a motion?
So I respect my fellow commissioners' comments and I think this is also, I also think it's a strong application. I think we have a certain level of comfort that we've been able to get to with the supplemental materials, and I really think that the community deserves to get to that level of comfort too. At the same time, I don't want to stop this application from moving forward, but I would like to defer it just to give them an opportunity to meet with the abutters and the concerned community members. This doesn't have to be an ONS, what's the word, an ONS sponsored meeting. The applicant could do the outreach themselves and meet with these people and answer their questions, because if we're able to get to that comfort level, I think we owe it to the neighborhood to give them an opportunity to get comfortable with that too. So I know we did this with another equity applicant in Charlestown. We asked them to go back and have more process and to meet with the community. And that was because we also want a transportation plan. I think my vote here would be to defer this application. They could come back right after that next meeting with the community. And we would take a vote then. There wouldn't have to be additional presentation, but it would give the community an opportunity to get to a certain level of comfort with them. So my vote would be to defer it, and we would take at the next voting meeting, we would take the official vote at that point on the application as a whole.
Is there a second?
So I have a question, just a question. So we're deferring it so the community can ask more questions around the ownership, or just the whole?
I have no issues with any other part of the application. I felt like the community, for me, the community feedback and support was low. And I think that was because there wasn't confidence with the ownership structure. I wasn't comfortable with the ownership structure until we received the follow-up. And I think the people that are presenting at the community meeting are supposed to be the owners and operators of the license, of the license. And at the time, that was 51% James. I'm sorry, I don't have the name right in front of me. And now he's not. Now he's 20%. And yes, we know that these are great operators, but I think the community should be able to meet with them and talk through this with them.
Is there any other questions on the motion? Is there a second? All in favor? Okay, 2 and 2. So motion does not carry. Is there another motion?
I don't know how to phrase it, but I would like to make a motion to basically do what you said, Chairwoman Joyce, sorry, but to actually grant it conditionally with another meeting about ownership specifically.
Okay, so that would have to be, if we look at our votes, they also have a buffer zone. So even a buffer zone would be a conditional grant. So it would be granted conditional upon zoning relief and a meeting with the neighborhood.
Specifically on the ownership.
Specifically on the ownership. Okay, so that means they would not have to come back to us
Yeah.
next month.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so the motion is to grant conditionally pending the buffer zone variance and an additional community meeting. Is that the motion, Commissioner Lombos?
Specifically
Community
around
meeting
the
specifically on the ownership.
Specifically on the
ownership structure. Yeah.
ownership structure. Is there a second? Okay. All right, so Commissioner Smith, that's a second. All in favor? I need all hands.
Fine.
Hands. All right. And I'm opposed. All right, so we're granting this application conditionally pending the buffer zone variance and another community meeting specifically around the ownership structure.
And I would just like to tease that out a little bit. I don't think this board, I think they have to have that community meeting before this gets scheduled at the ZBA.
Okay,
I agree with that, Catherine. I agree, Chairperson. They should have this meeting before we vote.
okay, so that, can you make another motion? That's another motion.
So Commissioner Holmes, do you want them to come back to our board?
So, yeah, well, after the community meeting and then come back, because we need to know what the community, how they felt about this second meeting and so is it possible? No, because I don't know. Is it possible to have a community meeting and then we get updated before they go through the buffer zone relief?
Well, that's
So-
what we could do that. It would be sort of like a split vote. We would grant it conditionally, but we don't move it forward to ZBA until we have heard that they've had this meeting. My question to you is, do you want them to appear back on our February agenda, not for further comment and input, but for another discussion as commissioners based upon that meeting?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So
Well,
that's,
that kind of goes back to a
that would be,
different.
Oh, that's the first motion that didn't pass?
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, we kind of got back there.
Jasmine, can you explain, should we grant this conditionally today upon buffer zone conflict? When does it get scheduled for ZBA?
ZBA would let us know when their scheduling is, so I would say like a month out usually they are.
So is it
It
anything,
would probably be finished before ZBA. Is that what you're saying, Kathleen?
well, we want to be able to attach some strings to that they don't get in the ZBA queue until they meet with the neighborhood, correct?
Yes.
Is it our letter, Jasmine, that starts that process of the ZBA?
Yeah, so once we grant our licenses, I send an email to ZBA saying these were granted, and then they can get dates with ZBA.
So, and not to hold them up unfairly, is it possible that they could get this community meeting done and get back to us by the next voting meeting?
It would depend on how quickly they put together a community meeting.
Well, if they wanted to open, wouldn't it be in their best interest to put one together fast? I mean,
That is true, that is true.
because I mean, I think that's viable. I mean, I agree with Commissioner Joyce that they just got to represent this to the community because so much opposition. What they presented was not what we ended up with last week. And although they have a very strong business program and plan here, they don't have any support from the community. And they're definitely going to have that. And I'd like to see them get that. So I would hope that we could come to maybe not a complete 100% agreement, but some happy medium where we can, move them forward.
So I would say just a little bit of a pushback. I mean, yes, there's significant segments of the community that is in opposition, but they do have some community support because they, again, reading through that community benefits agreement, they did work with the community organizations and other stakeholders. And I think since we have seen the supplemental information where they talked about the leadership structure and how it's broken out, that's the part the community hasn't seen.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel like I need to see them again once they present that.
How
that
are we going to know they presented it, Commissioner Smith?
So I think they have to, I mean, we have to sort of say, you have to hold this meeting and we need to be informed about what happened at that meeting. They can send us some information about when the meeting is scheduled, what happened, that kind of thing.
So sorry, can I just jump in? So would it work if they do a community meeting, obviously record it, and just draft up a brief memo of like how many people attended, et cetera, how the meeting went, and that way we'll have video and a brief memo of how it went.
I would be fine with that.
Yeah,
Recording.
that would work. That would be fine.
Okay. All right. So I don't even know where we are with the motion.
I actually think that motion that we just voted on that said, conditional on the zoning variance plus a community meeting with a update to the board, there's no need to vote on it again. I think that last vote was.
Okay.
valid.
And we want them to have this before they appear before the ZBA.
I don't think our letter should be sent to the ZBA until
We get the community meeting video with the memo.
Yep.
Okay. So we're gonna wrap it up again. So the motion is to grant conditionally via the buffer zone variance, an additional community meeting focused on the ownership structure, and they are gonna record it and send us a memo of how the community meeting went. And then the ZBA meeting will be scheduled. Okay,
Yeah. We don't schedule a ZBA meeting, then our letter to the ZBA
yeah,
with our vote will be delivered.
okay. So is there a second on that motion? All in favor? And all in favor for? All right. All right. Our final item is Green Flash Delivery LLC. The proposed license premise is 225 Southampton Street, Roxbury. The license type is a delivery operator license. The proposed hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. This is an equity applicant. The initial application was filed on October 13th, 2021. The inspectional services filing was June 25th, 2021. And the community meeting was held on December 20th, 2021. Chairwoman Joyce.
Thanks, Jasmine. I'm just taking a quick look at my notes. This was a very strong application. I really don't have any comments about the application or the presentation.
Commissioner Smith.
I thought it was fine. I think when you're presenting before the board, you shouldn't hide some of your presentation because you're worried. I don't know about whatever, but yeah, overall it was fine.
Commissioner Lombos.
It was fine. I agree.
Commissioner Holmes.
I agree.
Is there, Chairwoman Joyce, is there a motion?
Yes, I make a motion to grant this applicant this type of license at this location.
Is there a second? All in favor? Perfect, and none opposed. All right, so those are the matters before the board today. Our next hearing is taking place on February 9th, 2022 at 1 p.m. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of their evening, and we'll see you next month. Thank you, everybody.